Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, John and Lee proudly present the greatest wrestling show ever!
Hey guys, welcome to episode 9 of the greatest wrestling show ever with myself, John, and Lee. And Lee and I were just talking, and Lee started to tell me about how he'd missed out on Triple H's career and his first exposure to him. But I told him to stop talking because I want to save it for the podcast. So, again, this is a relatively lengthy match in total. We've got it up on WWE Network if you want to watch along at the same time. It's slightly before the Triple H Batista chapter starts. It's WrestleMania 21 from 2005. It's about 2 minutes before that chapter starts. If you go to that chapter, then just skip back a couple of minutes. We're on 3 hours, 5 minutes and 50 seconds because that's where the feud recap video starts. So we're going to go at 3 hours, 5 minutes and 50 seconds, unpausing in 3, 2, 1, go. Right, Lee, what were you telling me? You when you were a fan as a child, you got the start of Triple H's career. Is that what you're saying?
Very start, yeah, where it's just the posh chap persona.
Now, that means you watched wrestling for slightly longer than I thought. I thought you stopped watching wrestling after WrestleMania 10 because there was no Hogan. Triple H didn't come in until after WrestleMania 11, a year later.
Yeah, well, I sort of just dipped back in now and again just to kind of see what was going on. Just caught the odd episode of Wrestling Challenge or Superstars.
You saw the debut of Hunter Hearst Helmsley?
I don't know if I saw his debut. I remember his WrestleMania debut.
The following year, so that's WrestleMania 12 against the Warrior.
Yeah, so I must have seen that. But as far as Batista goes, absolutely I haven't seen any of him whatsoever, other than just watching highlight matches like this one.
In retrospect now, what you did see of Hunter Hearst Helmsley in 95, 96, did you peg him as being a future 14-time world champion and virtual Hall of Famer?
Absolutely not.
No? Okay. Wasn't the feud with Henry Godwinn didn't make you think this is the man? The hog pen match? Have you not seen the hog pen match?
No.
So Henry Godwinn, now I don't know if you know anything about Henry Godwinn. The Godwins, do you remember the Godwins?
No.
Right, Henry Godwinn was a pig farmer. Henry O. Godwinn, hog. Clever that. Later on, after the feud with Triple H, or Hunter Helmsley as he was, his cousin Phineas I. Godwinn, or Pig, see what they did? Came in and they were the Godwinn tag team. Previously, they were actually in WCW as Tex Slazenger and Shanghai Pierce. Later on, they were known, I think, as Southern Justice. Which one was it? Phineas went on to become Midian in the late 90s and early part of the millennium. But that's by the by, actually. But Hunter Hearst Helmsley and Henry Godwinn's blow off to their feud was a hog pen match where I can't remember if you actually had to slam your opponent into the hog pen, which is literally a pen full of pigs shitting on the floor, or if you had to pin them and then you got thrown in there. Possibly not worth looking up to check, to be honest. Anyway, we've digressed. So on the screen now, they're showing the build-up to the Triple H Batista feud. So going back a step or two, Triple H and Batista first crossed paths in storyline anyway as part of the stable Evolution. So they formed originally in 2002 as a modern-day version of the Four Horsemen.
Yeah.
So the idea is that Batista was the muscle, Randy Orton was the young, I don't know what you call it, superstar future. Triple H was the equivalent to Ric Flair in the Horsemen, and then Ric Flair himself was the mentor, the older father figure, if you will. And Batista nearly got essentially kicked out of Evolution early on. So relatively early on, he injured, I believe it was his tricep. Let's have a quick look now. And they were considering replacing him with Mark Jindrak, who I assume you've never heard of.
Right.
Correct. So Mark Jindrak, to take a step backwards, was in the dying days of WCW, one of the graduates of the power plant, their training school. I think he won the tag titles with possibly Sean O'Hare and a few others. He had a good look to him, big muscly guy. And then when WWE brought out WCW, he and Sean O'Hare and lots of other guys that had graduated the power plant around the same time came across. And when Batista was out injured with his tricep injury, they considered, when they restarted Evolution, having Jindrak as the muscle. And they even filmed some vignettes, you can find them on YouTube quite easily, with the four of them. So that's Flair, Triple H, Orton, and Mark Jindrak in the suits walking down the road. And then you can also, from only a few months later, when they decided to stick with Batista, find a carbon copy of the same vignette, but with Batista in the same position. So it's lucky, because if they decided to replace him with Mark Jindrak, who knows what would become of Batista?
This is an awesome entrance, by the way.
It is, yes. You've got Motorhead there, Lemmy playing. Triple H is looking good there, isn't he?
It's really good, yeah. So when did he change? When did Triple H change then to this Triple H that we sort of know and love? And
From Hunter Hearst Helmsley.
yeah.
So in summer of '97, Shawn Michaels wanted to turn heel and start working with his real life friend, Hunter Hearst Helmsley. And I think possibly at that point he'd started having Triple H as a bit of a nickname. He was still Hunter Hearst Helmsley, but with Triple H as a nickname. And they started, not teaming together as such, because they didn't do all that many tag matches as far as I remember, but they started being part of a stable. Triple H, as they started referring to him then, Shawn Michaels and Chyna, who was Triple H's bodyguard at that point. And I think pretty much from then on, so I want to say early summer '97 onwards, he's only ever been known as Triple H.
Right.
And the gimmicks changed a little bit over the years. At that point, it wasn't quite what it is here in 2005. It was more the D-Generation X version of it, but he dropped his long trouser tights around that time and started wearing shorts, and give or take, the whole presentation has been much the same now ever since, I'd say.
Yeah.
But Triple H was saying about his physique there, he'd gone off a couple of years prior to this being a little bit chubby, like, still in great shape in the grand scheme of things, but he was down with numerous injuries, and I don't know if there's anything else to it, but his physique in around about 2003-ish to maybe start 2004 wasn't quite what it was at this point. I suppose if you know you're about to main event against Batista, you probably want to look your best, don't you?
Absolutely, yeah.
So Batista actually originally came into WWE. To take a step back further still, actually, speaking of the power plant in WCW, Batista famously tried out for them. So at that point, he was only just starting to consider being a wrestler. He went for a tryout at the power plant in WCW, and I want to say about the year 2000. And Buddy Lee Parker, who was little more than an enhancement talent on WCW TV, but was head of the power plant, made Batista exercise until he vomited and had to crawl around in his own vomit saying, "I'm a cockroach," before they let him off. That then, I think, put him off. I don't know if it put him off wrestling entirely for a little while, then he came back, or if he just realised WCW wasn't the way in. But he ended up signing for WWE not all that long after that, going down to OVW, Ohio Valley Wrestling, which was sort of predecessor to what would go on to become NXT. It was a feeder territory for them. And it became part of the famous class of 2002. So in 2002, called up from Ohio Valley Wrestling to WWE, you have Batista, you have John Cena, and you have Randy Orton.
Wow.
The three biggest ones. Brock Lesnar, as well, the same year. They're your big four, your Mount Rushmore of OVW, if you will. There's also Shelton Benjamin, who is back now, obviously, and was around for quite a while at the time as well. But that's a hell of a class, that, isn't it?
Yeah, awesome. So is Batista the face here?
He is, yeah. So we're going back and forth time frame wise. So Evolution runs from, again, late 2003. I think they restart. No, probably earlier than that, actually. Would it be late 2000? I'm trying to remember when. I think it was late 2002 they started up again, when at one of the Hang on, man, I'm getting confused on timelines now. Summer 2003, anyway, they're definitely back as a tag, as a stable at that point, because Triple H is feuding with Goldberg. And I remember that Triple H did a $10,000 bounty on whoever could take Goldberg out, which Batista claimed. I remember Orton was involved in the Elimination Chamber match that summer as part of Evolution. So it must have been summer 2003. At the final pay-per-view of 2003, Triple H regains the World Heavyweight title, the belt is holding there, from Goldberg in a triple threat also involving Kane. The same night, Orton wins the Intercontinental title, I forget who from, and Batista and Ric Flair win the tag titles. So from late 2003 onwards, Evolution is a dominant stable in WWE. All throughout 2004, so Triple H loses the World Heavyweight title to Chris Benoit at WrestleMania 20. That feud continues over the summer. Randy Orton wins a Battle Royal, if I remember correctly, in early summer 2004 to face the World Heavyweight Champion, still Chris Benoit, at SummerSlam, and then defeats him to become the youngest ever World Heavyweight Champion. And then the next night on Raw, in what appears to be a celebration by Evolution of Orton reclaiming the World Heavyweight title for them as a group, Batista hoists Orton up in a shoulder ride, celebratory sort of position, as Triple H gives him a big thumbs up, and then he slowly turns his thumbs down as the look of disbelief spreads across Orton's face, and Batista drops him with a what you could call an electric chair drop, falling backwards out of a shoulder ride position, because Orton was only supposed to soften up Benoit for Triple H to then beat him for the title, you see.
Wow.
Following month of the next pay-per-view, September 2004, Triple H beats Orton for the World Heavyweight title, kind of cutting off his legs in his early face career there. It's one we've spoken about before. I've never liked it when a heel becomes a face because the other heels don't like him anymore.
Yeah.
He's not showing any change of heart. He's not showing that he's realised he had an error of judgment and all that sort of stuff. He's just some other bad guys don't like him.
It's not an organic transition, is it?
It's not. No one's going to buy it. But they're running through then to early part of 2005. Batista wins the Royal Rumble. And as usually happens with Royal Rumble winners, they have a choice of which world champion they want to face at the coming WrestleMania. And there's a famous, I think it'll be on an episode of Raw, somewhere between Royal Rumble and SummerSlam, Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, where Batista overhears Ric Flair and Triple H talking about how they're trying to trick Big Dumb Batista into choosing to face JBL for the title, the World Heavyweight, the WWE title at WrestleMania. Batista overhears this, and then famously in the contract signing at the end of that episode, gives Triple H the thumbs up and then the thumbs down, gives the big Batista bomb through the table, and then signs the contract to make this match in the main event of WrestleMania for the World Heavyweight title official.
Excellent.
It was a really well done storyline, if I remember well. They paced it nicely. People were really keen to see Batista step away from Triple H and to take it to that next level.
He's massive, isn't he?
He's a big lad, yeah.
So last week when I asked you about to name Undertaker's, the 8 names the Undertaker's gone by.
Yeah.
That was quite nice. So I've just written down a few more, but rather than fun facts, thought more quiz John throughout the match.
Go on then, go on.
So, which of the following nicknames has Triple H never used?
Okay, go on.
The King of Kings.
Yes, he has, yeah.
His World Gameness.
No.
The Cerebral Assassin.
Cerebral. It's American.
Well done.
So yeah, whichever the middle one was, whatever you said.
His Royal Gameness.
That's true. Did you make that up yourself?
No.
It's actually a quiz question. I can give you some of Triple H's past gimmicks if you like.
Well.
So in 1994, Triple H signed for WCW. He initially wrestled as Terror Rising. So first name Terror, surname Rising, but terrorizing. And I remember actually watching him on what must have been an episode of Worldwide or Pro or something like that on a Saturday afternoon on ITV. A few months later, he became Jean-Paul Levesque. So his real name is Paul Levesque, and he became Jean-Paul Levesque and teamed with Stephen as was, William as now, Regal, in a new version of the Blue Bloods, if I remember correctly. But again, I think that only lasted for a handful of months before he was then signed by WWE in early '95, it would have been. He'd actually not been wrestling at that point for anywhere near as long as most people assumed. So I think by the time he signed for WCW, he'd been wrestling like 6 months, but he'd been telling people it was a period longer until I think it may have been Regal asked him how long he'd actually been wrestling, because he noticed that his footwork wasn't right and some of the basics weren't quite there. That whilst in some ways he looked like a good overall package, experienced as he'd been making out. And I think Regal and Triple H have had a lifelong friendship ever since.
So he's always had that Regal Royal persona then to his characters.
To some degree, yeah, I'd say so, yeah. Yeah, or at least since that point anyway, yeah. Batista, when he was in OVW, wrestled as Leviathan. Leviathan, yeah. At the same time as John Cena wrestled as the Prototype. He was the prototype for the wrestler of the future, and he did sort of semi-robotic promos. So he wasn't literally claiming he was part robot, but there was this robotic element to the character. He was the prototypical wrestler of the future.
Oh, yeah.
Right, so the match itself obviously started a number of minutes ago. You've got Ric Flair there still in Batista's corner. Speaking of lifelong friends, Triple H and Ric Flair also been friends ever since, I believe, Flair came into WWE in late 2001. And I think growing up, Triple H was a massive Ric Flair fan and to some degree has modelled himself on, maybe not exactly Ric Flair, but that kind of approach and character and what have you.
Yeah.
Flair's still an active wrestler at this point, is still 3 years off retirement himself. Amazing, Flair. So Flair must be 56 there. I think that's right. Yeah, 56. Fair play to him.
Yeah, absolute legend. All right, so which of these jobs hasn't Batista done? Bodybuilder, bouncer, bodyguard, lifeguard.
The middle two, I'm fairly sure, are right. Now, obviously, bodybuilds. When you say job, has he ever made any sort of income from bodybuilding? Has that ever been his mode of employment?
It's not.
It's not a trick question.
No.
Lifeguard, then.
No, bodyguard.
Bodyguard, right? Okay, I thought he had been a bodyguard, right?
So he has been a lifeguard, a bouncer, and a bodybuilder. Like you say, we need a bodybuilder.
Fair play to him, yeah. So this is the first of 3 famous matches that Triple H and Batista have in 2005. We did consider watching one of the other ones. I believe the Vengeance match, which I think is a Hell in a Cell match, is the best from my recollection. And I think possibly we didn't choose that because we'd already got a Hell in a Cell match. Was that right? Do we have a Hell in a Cell match?
Yeah, was it the women's tag team?
That's Elimination Chamber.
Elimination Chamber, wasn't it?
Maybe we just went for this one because it's perhaps the most well-known one. It's the biggest one at WrestleMania. And just whilst looking up some facts earlier as well, I saw that the match with Triple H and Batista 2 months later at Vengeance in Hell in a Cell was the first time that Triple H lost a Hell in a Cell match. He'd won 4 before that, beating, I'm trying to find it now, there was definitely Chris Jericho on that list, Kevin Nash, Cactus Jack, Mick Foley, and possibly Shawn Michaels, would it have been? Not entirely sure now, actually. But this is his fifth one, the match 2 months later from this one, and the first time he loses one. So Triple H really did everything in his power to put Batista over there, losing to him 3 pay-per-views in a row.
When did they stop doing cage matches?
Like the old-fashioned blue barred cage.
Over the top.
Yeah, let's think. I remember Triple H and Mankind having a standard blue bar cage match at SummerSlam 97. And at that point, that seemed a little bit old-fashioned. It'd been the first one for a while. Brett and Owen wrestled in that blue barred cage at SummerSlam 94 for the world title.
Great match.
I think from the mid-90s onwards, it seemed to be going out a little bit and was then replaced by things like Hell in a Cell.
The old blue bars, you call them there. Because Hell in a Cell, I don't know, it just seems it's pretty much just a standard match, isn't it? But inside a cage.
The one thing I do like more about the likes of Hell in a Cell is over the years, things like a standard cage match and a strap match and things like that morphed from their original incarnation. So originally, let's say back in the 60s and 70s, defending WWF champion Bruno Sammartino would often blow off his feuds with something like a cage match or a strap match. And it was done very much in a way where Bruno would have battered his foe so senseless and was so utterly defeated that he was able to just casually walk out the cage or walk round and touch the 4 corners of the ring. Over time, it evolved into a way for someone to lose a match without being pinned, whereby they won the match by escaping the cage, essentially running away from their opponent.
Well,
First one to run away from the other one is the winner.
Do you know what? I've never looked at it like that.
Yeah. Which, whilst it still worked, was obviously just a different way of doing it, which, I mean, it was always fine. I never disliked them because always there was a different element to a cage match, but that winner being the first one to run away never was my favourite way of doing it, whereas something like a Hell in a Cell is a lot more first one to comprehensively beat their opponent to the point of pinning them, obviously, but generally the winner of the Hell in a Cell is a comprehensive victory, isn't it?
Do you remember, I'm sure you do, who Triple H defeated for his first WWE Championship?
I do. Let me see if I can say all 14. So first one would have been Mankind the day after SummerSlam 99. Triple H had originally, or the talk was that they wanted him to beat Austin, but Austin wasn't keen on losing to Triple H. So they had a 3-way, Austin defending against Mankind and Triple H. Mankind takes the title. Next night on Raw, Triple H beats him for it. A few weeks later, Triple H loses the world title to Vince McMahon. And McMahon holds it up, or whatever you want to call it. Triple H wins the 6-pack challenge at the following month's pay-per-view. Then loses it to the Big Show at Survivor Series 99. Beats Big Show for it in early 2000. Loses it to The Rock, the pay-per-view after WrestleMania 2000. And wins it back from The Rock. Loses it back to The Rock again. So where are we now? Summer 2000. I don't think he then holds it again for the best part of a couple of years. I think he hasn't held it by the time he tears his quad in 2001. Comes back Royal Rumble 2002, winning the Rumble. Faces Chris Jericho for the undisputed title in the main event of that year's WrestleMania 18, beating him for the title. What happens then?
Take anything. John isn't reading. This is all out of his head, which is incredible.
I know he loses it the following month to a returning Hulk Hogan in the Hogan's final sort of hurrah as a major singles player. He then is presented with the World Heavyweight title. So I was going to cover that with you at some point. This World Heavyweight title obviously is not the original WWF title. Do you know how this one came into being?
No, but the only thing I was going to comment was it looks very similar to the belt that Ric Flair brought in from WCW.
It is. The big gold belt, as it's called.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, it is. So, 2001, when WWE by WCW the WCW champion, who's Booker T, having won it from Scott Steiner on the final episode of Monday Nitro, comes in as defending WCW champion. It then gets unified at the end of 2001, as aforementioned Chris Jericho. He unifies the titles by beating WCW champion The Rock and WWF champion Steve Austin in the same night. For the majority of 2002, there is then just the undisputed champion. I mentioned before about Triple H beating Jericho for it. Triple H drops it to Hogan. Hogan drops it to Undertaker. Undertaker must drop it to The Rock at some point because SummerSlam 2002, a brand new Brock Lesnar beats The Rock for it. And then in an episode of SmackDown shortly afterwards, having done the brand extension for the first time a few months before, I think it was Stephanie McMahon announces that Brock Lesnar, and therefore the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, is now exclusive property of SmackDown. And then the following week on Raw, they decide to create a second World Heavyweight title called the World Heavyweight Championship, which is given to Triple H when Eric Bischoff just picks the title out of a bag or a briefcase and decides that Triple H is the champion and presents it to him. There's no tournament, no real justification, just Triple H is now this extra world champion. Well, Triple H has been busted open there. Batista gave him a catapult off the steel steps into the corner post, and Triple H is bleeding heavily. Yeah, they always, it's funny too, when they bleed, they always look disproportionately out of it from what is, although it looks bad, is essentially relatively minor blood loss. They're not actually going into shock at that point, are they? I know this, having done a first aid course only today.
Hey.
So anyway, Triple H has that title. He loses. So where are we now? Late 2002. What happens to that title? He loses it to Shawn Michaels, Survivor Series 2002, wins it back from Michaels at the December pay-per-view that year, drops it to Benoit, I mentioned before, WrestleMania. Oh, hang on, I've skipped a whole year there. 2003, loses it to Goldberg, gets it back from Goldberg, drops it to Benoit, who drops it to Orton, who Triple H wins it from, and that's brought us up to where we are now.
That's absolutely incredible.
The last 10, 15 years, I'm less good at. Probably most of the stuff in the 90s, I could probably give you dates and everything, I'd have thought, but it gets a little bit more blurred from probably the mid to late 2000s onwards.
I think if we're going to carry on this quiz format in the weeks to come, I'm going to have to up my game.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Do you know who he defeated for his first Intercontinental Championship?
A young Rocky Maivia on Raw Thursday in February 97.
Has he got another name?
Other way round, my apologies. He beat Mark Merrow for it in about October 96 and then lost it to Rocky Maivia on Raw Thursday in February 97. Got that one the wrong way around. I like Mark Merrow. Mark Merrow was Johnny B. Bad in WCW, if you remember that.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, I remember him.
So Merrow comes in the night after WrestleMania 12, which you watched, with his real life wife, Sable, now married to Brock Lesnar. And in the summer of 96, I thought Mark Merrow was pretty good, to be honest. Supposedly, by all accounts, he was a bit crap at the basics, and whilst he could do flashy moves, wasn't actually a very good wrestler. But I never noticed that at the time. He always seemed good to me. He did a nice...
From WCW mainly, but yeah, he was a great character, at least.
He did a nice moonsault. It was called the Merrow Salt. So he'd be stood on the top rope facing inwards and then would just jump 180 on the top rope to be facing outwards and then backflip into the ring into a moonsault.
Oh, so he's sort of playing on the rope and then...
Just spins around like that, yeah. So yeah, he won the... so how did Merrow win the Intercontinental title? So what are we looking at now? Summer of 96. I can't think where Merrow would have won it from. But yeah, Triple H won it from him. lost it to Rocky Maivia, and then a year and a half later, with both having gone through very major character transformations, Triple H wins his second Intercontinental title from The Rock, as he is now, at SummerSlam '98. It's amazing, actually, the change in those few years for a lot of them, going from mid-card, fairly boring characters to bona fide main eventers in 6, 12, 18 months.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have to remind myself of that now, because sometimes they'll push I don't know, say a Seth Rollins to the World Heavyweight title scene, and I'm like, oh, it's not. I don't know. He was only wrestling for the Intercontinental title 6 months ago or a year ago, and I don't quite buy him with that. But then you've got to remember that how quickly superstars were accepted when I was the age of probably the average modern WWE fan. So you can see why they're doing it now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are the same wrestlers that don't who've had the belt, but I don't think warrant it in recent times. Like Kofi Kingston, for example, that didn't fly with me.
No, not a big Kofi fan. You didn't enjoy Kofi Mania?
I'm not saying I'm not a Kofi fan, just not as the leading man in WWE. So when Brock Lesnar did him in 9 seconds, I liked that because it was accurate.
I think the problem they did with Kofi is they didn't make any changes to his character. So we were essentially supposed to accept smiley, happy, pancake waving New Day Kofi as the serious world champion. I think people were keen for him to get there, and then when he got there was no progression.
Yeah. If it had been Big E, on the other hand.
Oh, yeah. Even with Big E, like, when they pull the trigger on him and put him up to that world title level, I do hope they change him in some ways. Like, keep the good bits, but I don't know if he's still wearing the Dayglow stuff and has pancakes and all that. Will he be accepted as a main eventer?
Well, he's on his own now, anyway, isn't he? So now's the time, because them two are split things, haven't they?
Injured?
No, because Kofi and Xavier got drafted to.
Of course, yeah.
He's been left behind.
Triple H there wearing the crimson mask, as they refer to it. Is about to go for a pedigree on Batista. Has Batista got something sticking out of his back there?
I think it's just ticker tape.
It's of course because this is WrestleMania Goes Hollywood. They've got all the tinsely stuff coming out of the wherever it came out of. Triple H blocking the. Oh, do you know who did the first pedigree? You'll never guess.
I feel like you've told me this before. Go on.
Andre the Giant. I kid you not. It's not a joke. Google Andre the Giant doing the pedigree, and you will find it. It's not a joke. It's in Japan, I think it was, and it's a very crap version of the pedigree. But he sticks his opponents. What's that?
Andre did a move.
Well, that was surprising at the start. He sticks his opponent between his legs. He grabs them more on the wrists rather than a double underhook, but then drops to his knees. So the opponent doesn't go out flat. He just goes down in a bit of a Batista bomb. Is that the end already? Can it be? I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, big Batista bomb there from Big Dave Batista. Obviously gone on to Hollywood success since then, Batista, hasn't he?
Yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy.
Bond film as well. Bond villain.
Yes.
What was he? Drax was he called, with the old thumbs in the eyes, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's right.
He stayed for about 5 more years after this. So this is WrestleMania 2005. He was definitely at WrestleMania in 2010, and I think it was only a handful of months after that he left. Went off to do movies. I think he might have had to go at MMA at one point. I think, did he have a fight in, I think, was it something like Strike Force? It wasn't UFC, it was a level or two below that. But he definitely had some level of MMA experience.
Yeah.
Then came back for a few months in early 2014. He won the 2014 Rumble, last eliminating Roman Reigns to boos when they'd expected him to come back as a popular babyface. He was due to beat Randy Orton for the then undisputed again world title, having been reunified at that year's WrestleMania, before Daniel Bryan got himself in the mix.
Right. How long does he hold on to this belt here now then?
So he holds it until he has to abandon it due to a tricep injury again in, I want to say, about November 2005. It was shortly after Eddie Guerrero died, because the talk was that Eddie was due to beat him for the world title, which I don't believe was true. I think Stephanie McMahon said something about him being in the world title mix or what have you, and people
As in, said that posthumously, you mean?
exactly, yeah. And maybe said something about him maybe getting back to world title level or something like that, and people, that then became a bit of an urban myth that he was due to beat Batista the week he died. So Batista was the world heavyweight champion when I pulled him off.
I beg your pardon.
When I pulled Batista off. Have you not seen the video of me pulling Batista off?
No. Is it
This is
like,
when I had my first WWE tryout. It was at the Sheffield Arena in Sheffield, obviously, in November 2005. It was 8 days after Eddie Guerrero had died. And on both the Raw and the SmackDown, having had my tryout during the day, they needed people to be extras. And on one of them, I think it would have been the Raw, in our roles as extras, we had to break up a fight between Team Raw and Team SmackDown. So yeah, so I think I've shared the video on Facebook. Now I'm probably lying. Actually, I don't think I pulled Batista off. I think I who was I pulling off, so to speak? Who was it? Was it Bobby Lashley or someone like that? I forget now. I'll have to rewatch it. But Batista.
During the tryouts.
Say again.
Who didn't you pull off during your tryouts?
I tried. I honestly. I thought if I just pull off everyone, then I'll probably get in. But apparently that's how the divas get in, not the superstars, as they were differentiated back then. But that actually was how they explained the injury. So Big Show and Kane give Batista a choke slam through a car window, supposedly. He obviously just climbed onto an already broken car and camera angle didn't quite catch it. But I think that was the explanation from then having to vacate the world title. So I think they said it was a tricep injury, but not just a general tricep injury, one caused by a choke slam through a car.
Wow.
Yeah, cool, right. So that's Triple H versus Batista. I quite enjoyed that match. It was a good match, wasn't it?
Yeah, really good.
For his limitations, Batista, I think, as an all-rounder, is perhaps somewhat underrated in that he was a good enough wrestler. He had a fantastic look. He was pretty good on the mic.
Yeah, it's believable, isn't it?
I think potentially if he'd not left when he did, that's the same night that John Cena wins his first world title. So, if actually Batista stays around for the next 15 years like Cena has done, is he then held in something along the same, levels of respect, perhaps?
Sure, he would have been.
Batista actually they're getting the main event over Cena. So Cena beats JBL for the WWE Championship, the linear world title earlier in the show. So looking back in retrospect, that's a big night with Batista and Cena stepping up to world title level on the same night. Okay, so that's a world title match. If we're looking then at a non-title match, well, overall, I'll tell you what we've got all together. We've got Trish and Lita for the women's title. We've got the triangle, the TLC match, Christian and Edge against the Dudleys, against the Hardy Boys, WrestleMania 17. We've got Bret Hart, Steve Austin from WrestleMania 13. Punk and Cena were saving for last. We've got Ricky Steamboat against Randy Savage from WrestleMania 3. But we've got your pick, your favourite match of all time, Ric Flair's Money in the Bank match.
Should we do that one, get it out of the way?
That's 2 Ric Flair matches in a row, kind of.
It's either that or Trish, and then the other 4 that you mentioned, I'm thinking, what a final 4.
Yeah, so that leaves 4 still after that, does it? 1, 2,
5.
3.
It was
5 in total left. We're going Money in the Bank next, yeah?
Yeah.
So you could argue it's a piss break match after the excitement of Batista and Triple H there. Have a piss break match and then maybe come back with something like Bret Hart, Steve Austin, something like that.
No, I think and then we do the Trish one.
Trish, yeah, that's a good match. Trish and Lita.
And those matches left over are three absolute classics.
Big final three, that is.
Yeah.
Awesome. Right, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. I will get around to setting up a Twitter account this week. I promise you.
Do it.